what are the Sixers doing right now? Are they trying to be the 3 seed? Are they trying to get out of the 3 spot? People are wondering, are they losing on purpose? Can talent overcome all? Michael Lee from theathletic.com says the Sixers are running out of time to gel, and they kind of they got to figure this out. They got to figure this out, Michael. Welcome back to the show, man. How you been?
I've been good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you write this article at a perfect time where, again, the Sixers last night kind of lay a clunker, and people are wondering, what happened in Atlanta? What happened in Orlando? Well, it looked like they were the 3 seed, and maybe they're just kind of playing out the string. Then they beat the Nets. Then what happened in Dallas? Well, what happened last night? What is happening with this team right now?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, I guess if you're an optimist, you used to say that this team is just ready for the playoffs to get started, and they're just trying to just play out the season so they can just get there and just survive, and then they'll turn on the real team once the playoffs begin. If you're a pessimist, you can look at it and say that this team is just falling apart, that they've lost their commitment to defense, and they're going to be a short run in the postseason until they get their act together on the defensive end. You could look at it as somewhere in between and say, well, Joel Embiid's been missing some games, so that's the reason why. But again, this team is too talented to just rely on one player to bail them out. That's why they went out and made all these big trades to get these borderline all-star players so that they can, make up for the absence of one guy. They shouldn't have these issues. But I just think that right now their lack of commitment to defense, which has been the case for most of the season, especially in games Joel doesn't play, is being exposed right now. And they're going to be putting a lot of pressure on Joe to kind of bail out all their problems, because I think it all starts on the defensive end. And that's an area where they're not committed. And that's a bad habit to develop before the playoffs start.
And the crazy thing, Michael, is the way they're built now with the players that they've brought in. They were a good defensive team last year, and Joel Embiid being a big reason why. But they brought in Jimmy Butler, a good defensive player. They brought in length in getting guys like Tobias Harris, so they're not as vulnerable on the perimeter to good athletes like they were last year against the Celtics in the playoffs. Theoretically, they're supposed to be a better, more well-rounded defensive team, a longer team, an athletic team, even when they miss Joel Embiid. And I agree with you. It seems like their commitment to just playing that defense is not there. Is that not having... Lloyd Pierce is now coaching Atlanta. Is there something they just lost Billy Lang to college basketball? So, I mean, is it the turnover? Yeah, I didn't think it was that either, but I had to bring it up. Where do you see is the breakdown in this team's inability to play good defense at times?
Well, I think the one thing about defense is that it requires sacrifice, and it requires doing a lot of dirty work. And one of the things that's happened is that they've acquired stars. And I know Jimmy is a two-way player. That's his reputation. But I think that when you come in and you're looking for shots, and you may not get them, you may not be as committed on the defensive end. And I think that you got to have guys who are willing to buy in the roles and accept them. And that was what they had last year. It's hard to compare everything to last year, two different teams. But I honestly think that, last year they had guys, Robert Covington, who were just going to go out there. And if they weren't going to shoot that day, they were just going to give it all they had on one end of the floor. And that's sort of, I think that's what's missing, guys who are just truly committed to doing whatever it takes to win games. I think that's been an issue that they've been dealing with. I mean, when you have, say, a super team, and you have so many guys out there who are looking to put up numbers, especially when you're in a situation where you have, I think, all but 4 players are going to be free agents next year. It's hard to get guys to buy in and commit to say, I'm going to just sacrifice for my teammate, because you don't know if he's going to be a teammate next year.
Michael Lee, The Athletic, the Sixers coming down the stretch. They have 4 games left, including tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks. And, Michael, when they have a full component of starters, they're 8-2 together. They're pretty good. So did they feel that they could just flip the switch, the proverbial switch that we hear about so much, and just be a good team once they all get together?
That's all they can really hope for, really. One thing that I asked Brett Brown about it was like, you've only had 10 games with this group. Is that enough? And he was like, time isn't on our side. And, and when you look at the other teams they're going to be facing, everybody else has had more than 10 games together. So they're going to be, hamstrung in that respect. But he said that's the bad news. But the good news is they have talent. And they do have talent. and they have especially 3 starters, in particular, who will all be free agents, who don't want to have a poor showing in the postseason as they get ready to, get a huge payday. I would imagine that would be motivation, all around, whether they plan on staying in Philadelphia or going elsewhere, to be motivation to turn it on and play well, play to the best of their abilities once the playoffs get here. And they know what's at stake, and they know what this roster was built to do. So it wasn't to go out in the first round or the second round; it's to go pretty far. And I think they have the talent to do it. It's just now it's a question: do they have the commitment? Are they all bought in? And you just haven't seen enough to say for sure that they have, and they can't say for sure either. I think it's going to be a mystery, and there are going to be some things that gets brought to attention in the postseason. I mean, I asked JJ Redick about it, and he was like, you deal with the cards that you dealt, basically, and he said that every team's going to have questions going into the playoffs, and that's why they have the playoffs, to figure out who's the most flawed, and that'll be exposed in the postseason, exactly what areas where they're deficient.
I almost hear, and deservedly so, Michael, I almost hear some skepticism in your voice there. And I wonder right now, as you look at this team and the obstacles it faces and having to gel without still right now having their entire starting lineup with just a few games left in the regular season, what you think is more viable as you look at the Sixers right now? Do you or more logical to expect losing in the second round or being in the finals, NBA finals?
I'll probably go losing in the second round, primarily because with Joel Embiid, he's missed 13 games since the All-Star break, and it could be 14 tonight, and he may not play again in the rest of the regular season. And for me, that's concerning. I know you can say you want to rest him up and get him healthy and ready for the playoffs, but these are games that he should be playing. They haven't locked up anything. It's not like they have the third seed wrapped up or any other seed wrapped up. They need him on the floor if they're going to wind up competing and holding on to that third seed. So the fact that he's missing time right now, that to me that's something that I have to be thinking about going into the playoffs. Last year, he had the facial fracture, and you knew you weren't going to have him, and you sort of just accepted it. Mm-hmm. And Ben Simmons just came on and just ran away with Rookie of the Year and just played at such a high level. You're not seeing that kind of energy, enthusiasm from this team without Joel now. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on him when he comes back because the team isn't rolling in his absence. The team actually really needs him. And the fact that he's not on the floor and that he's kind of going to be in a similar position trying to get himself into shape during the playoffs, to me, I think it just puts him at a disadvantage. Now, unless he's just storing up and he's just got it all saved up for just a huge explosive postseason, I do have concerns about what Joel Embiid you're going to see come playoff time.
Which is wild, Michael, because, he missed a bunch of games, and then he comes back and scores like 39 points and looks like he's never left, and then they hold him out for 3 more, and you're like, is something wrong with this guy? Because when he plays, it doesn't appear that he has any ill effects.
Yeah, I mean, Brett Brown was like, it's not a big deal. We're just looking out for him, load management, all these other words, rest and all these other things. But I'm like, these games matter. Like, it's not like you have anything wrapped up. I mean, you look around the league, everybody's nicked up or banged up, but you see Steph Curry out there playing. You see James Harden out there playing. You see guys that are trying to, secure spots or secure positions, and they're out there going out there and busting their tail. They might get a day off of rest, but they're not missing 13 games. I mean, it's not like they've had that many games since the All-Star break. He's missed almost half of them. So I think that, you can say what you want to try to make it seem like it's not a big deal. To me, it is, because either there's something really wrong with him or something else. But I have to lean towards something being wrong, because him not playing this many games is something that I got to start wondering, like, what's up?
Yeah, because as you write, can the talent basically overcome all of this? And you would say, well, possibly here's a question then for you. I know that, Michael, you've been in Philly live enough to say, okay, I can make some sort of adjustment, but they've only played 10 times. They're 8-2. Is that 10-game sample size enough for you to make a assertion on how far this team can go?
No, because it's not like they've just been dominant in those 10 games. It's not like they've just gone out there and just, been just this insurmountable force that teams just can't compete with. They've skidded by and won some pretty close games that, needed somebody to bail them out in the end. So even though they have all this talent, it's not like it's leading to just a team that's just unbeatable. Some of their wins, especially against Milwaukee, where Milwaukee didn't have Malcolm Brogdon and didn't have him, and we later revealed that Nikola Mirotic was hurt playing in that game. And then the game against Boston, when Marcus Smart got ejected and Aaron Baines got hurt, they were down 15. They came back and won, but Celtics were missing two really huge pieces that day. So you can play devil's advocate and say that, 8-2, that's a nice record, but some of those wins, even against some of the elite teams, sort of make you go, well, did they really beat the best? Because when they played Boston early on, when they just assembled this group, they lost up there. So there's still some things that they got to work out. But like I said in the story, there just isn't a lot of time for them to work it out, and it's going to be interesting. They have the greatest boom or bust potential of any team in the playoffs, and one of the reasons why is that they're a mystery. You just don't know what they are.
I feel like that's the same about how this city feels about Brett Brown. He's either done a great job, if you look at the last 2 years, to get this young team with so many moving parts to even be a top 4 seed each year, but then what we're talking about in the micro here, they are really struggling without Joel Embiid, and you compare that to what the Pacers and Nate McMillan have done without Oladipo, and you say there should be no excuse for what you're seeing from the Sixers right now. So I do feel like there's a little bit of a reflection on that as well on the coach. What do you make of Brett Brown now after what you've seen for a few years here?
Well, if I just go off Twitter, I believe that the
That's
Sixers
dangerous.
are 49-0. Brown is 0-29 based on everything I see on Twitter.
That's right.
You are 100% accurate about that, according to the Twitter fans.
That's exactly how I see it. But I think that Brett's he's in a difficult position because he had a style of play that he tried to bring here and incorporate a system, a style that worked last year that won the 52 games. And in the quest to find stars, he sort of had to adjust his system to adapt to, the talent on the floor now. So it's not where you can just plug in guys and just have motion and movement and screens and ball movement, and then all of a sudden you get an open shot in the corner and boom, there you go. No, now you have guys who can actually put the ball on the floor, can do things off pick and roll, who can create for other teammates, and it sort of disrupts just what he's doing. So, and he sort of had to coach 3 or 4 different teams this year. And it's not like he's had just one smooth lineup that you can just trot out there and say, this is my squad. Guys have been in and out.
Right.
Joel Embiid's been in and out. So I think he's probably had the most challenging job of his time here. It even goes with the process years, because at least then they knew they weren't trying to win games. That wasn't the objective. Now the objective is to win, but he has to sort of appease all these egos, make everybody happy, and also try to run a system that he's confident in. And I think you're seeing that struggle, and that's why you're seeing so much inconsistency with this group.
Can talent overcome all? Michael Lee, at Mr. Michael Lee on Twitter for theathletic.com. Make sure you subscribe and check out the article. It's a great article to get you ready, and it's a question that everybody wants to know. Do the Sixers have the switch to flip on? Last year, Michael, I know that they don't have LeBron James, but remember the Cavs defensively were awful all season long, and there was a lot of people who said they just can't flip this switch. They did, and they got to the finals. Do the Sixers have that kind of talent? I don't know. Is Joel Embiid, LeBron, is he on that level?
I think no one's on LeBron's level right now. I mean, we can say that he may be one day, but I think the one thing that the Cavaliers had that this team doesn't is that they have a past. They have a history of playoff success that they can lean on, and when they went to the postseason, they just kind of fell back to all that. And obviously, LeBron just played at such a super duper high level. I think that when you go through a full season together and you go through seasons together and you have success, you earn that trust and you earn that faith and confidence in your teammates that they can do things. These guys are still strangers. So even if they have the talent to compensate for all the time that they haven't had together on the floor, it's going to be difficult to just say, okay, snap your finger, we're here. Because how is Jimmy Butler going to know what J.J. Redick's going to do in a playoff situation? He doesn't know. He's never been with him on that stage. How are they going to know what Tobias Harris is going to do, playing for a team that really has something to play for? I mean, this is to be his second time in the playoffs. The first time he was the 8th seed. So now he's on a team that has expectations. So, you got talent, you have this group, but you just don't have that, that equity that comes from just being around each other and gaining that familiarity.
It all starts in about 10 days, the NBA playoffs. You'll hear all the Sixers action tonight against the Bucks and all playoffs long right here on 97.3 ESPN. Mr. Michael Lee on Twitter. Check him out at The Athletic. Thanks, pal.
Hey, thanks for having me on.